Well, let's see what does and does not work here in the bunch. I went and picked up some batteries for this little Sears boombox, this SR2100 series. And I've never seen anything quite like this before. Usually, when I'm working with boomboxes, they take batteries in even numbers, but this thing takes 5. Go figure, huh? Doesn't seem to make a huge difference. It works very well.
Learn. For Maddie Hammerland, one of the best things is the small size and personal attention.
I feel like an individual, not a number. And that's huge. That's what I really love about UMR.
The AM tuner in it seems to do a very nice job. That's a station from about 30 miles away, and it's just being received on whatever internal antenna this thing has. The tape deck works, although this tape is kind of crappy, and the songs are all pretty bad re-recording, so it really doesn't give you an accurate idea of how decent the performance of the tape deck really is. But here it is anyway.
I bet it wouldn't take her very long to get gone if someone will pull a dirty trick and take her towel away.
There's a monophonic listening switch up here, stereo wide, and it works in all positions except AM.
Called by the girl wearing nothing but a smile and a towel, and their picture on the billboard in the field.
And in some cases, the stereo wide effect is actually pretty good. Then there's FM listening. Now, unfortunately, the FM listening is going to be affected by the fact that I've got a big metal truck around the radio, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
It's Allianz, which has been providing investment, insurance, and
stereo
retirement solutions through its affiliated companies in the United States since 1896. Our show tonight, written by Sarah Bellum and by Holly Harden. Rich Dworsky back here at the piano, Mr. Pat Donahue on guitar. Gary Rayner back here on the bass, Peter Johnson.
So that little thing works quite well. Should make for a very nice little portable radio. The only thing obviously wrong with it is that somebody broke the little gripping ball off the end of the antenna. There is no built-in AC power supply on this thing. Doesn't even look like there's room for one. The only way to power it from the wall is to use a DC 7.5 volt adapter. It does support stereo external microphone inputs, 2 external speakers of 4 ohms impedance apiece, and a remote control for a microphone that would have a switch on it to turn the tape recorder on and off. So not a bad little find there for $1. See about the computer. Part of the reason why I paid for what I did for this thing has to do with its condition. A lot of times when these plastic-bodied Dell machines are taken out of service, the plastic cases get all scuffed up, or pieces get broken off of them, like this door right here on the front. It's a frequent accident victim. And the 2 computers that were sitting right next to this thing and selling for the same money, and I think it's criminal that they were trying to get $50 out of these, but whatever, had suffered a lot of damage. So this one somehow miraculously escaped most of that. It's only got 2 light scratches up there and 1 slightly heavier scratch down there, and after a little bit of cleaning they might go away. Got the keyboard hooked up. I couldn't find a PS2 mouse, so I've got an old school mouse going on here, a Microsoft Serial Mouse 1.0A. My guess is that this machine probably had an upgraded sound card or a Dell supplied Firewire board in there that somebody felt the need to borrow. But oh well, I got plenty of sound cards today. In the off event that I would somehow need one. I certainly have plenty to choose from, although they're not there. I'm not real sure where they get. There they are. They're all Creative Sound Blasters. Can't find the one I really wanted to show you though. Okay, here all 3 of the sound cards are. They're all PCI Sound Blasters of some flavor or another. This one's just a simple Creative Audio PCI. And while they used to be common on ISA sound cards, PCI sound cards rarely, if ever, have an amplified audio output on them. They usually just have a line level audio out, although you can see here that they thought about it. And in the case of these other 2 cards, they actually did it. There's an STA TDA 7360 stereo audio power amplifier and an extra speaker connection that you could plug a set of unpowered speakers into. But this one, this is impressive. I've never seen such a heatsink setup on a sound card before. That is almost certainly overkill. Uses a National Semiconductor 1876 or an 1876T. I'll have to look up the specs on that. It looks to me like they expected it to get at least moderately warm in operation, didn't they? Let's go ahead and power this monitor on and see if it works. This is the one that they wouldn't deliver. Let's go ahead and turn this on, see if it still happens to work. That was a moderately meaty sounding degaussing coil engagement. Ah, no signal input or cable disconnected, which it presently is. So we go over here, plug this into the video card. Amazingly, I got it right the first time. Turn this thing on, see if it actually works. It's pretty quiet, I'll give it that. Go into setup here. Ha! The date's set properly. I don't know if that time's exactly right. I don't have any idea what time it is. 512 megabytes of installed memory. 533 megahertz front side bus processor with a clock speed of 2.53 gigahertz. I believe that this is a full-fledged Pentium 4 and not a Celeron. So, let's go ahead and try booting it up. There is one thing I do not understand here. This little monitor was one of the cheapest that Dell ever sold, and I imagine that the cheapest possible Chinese OEM produced it for them. It certainly is made in China, but I have never seen one of these little monitors that was A, broken, or B, that had a bad picture. These things always seem to have just razor sharp focus. That's not razor sharp, is it? Well, I can't really give you an example of that. It just amazes me that such a cheap monitor could always be so decent. At least in every example that I've ever seen, no matter how they were treated, and I have picked a number of these up off the curb. Looks like Bizarre Furhead's out here. Yes?
Oh, hello. You're not supposed to see that.
And what are you doing with the Keykeeper's Handycam?
Who says I have the Keykeeper's Handycam?
Oh, I think if I wind the tape back, I'll see that you had the Keykeeper's Handycam.
What Handycam? I only have one hand.
Uh-huh. If you say so.
I do say so.
Okay, well if you say you haven't got his Handycam, I guess I believe you.
You should always believe your local Bizarre Furhead.
Okay. Yep. Well, it looks to me like the computer certainly should work, if I'm willing to accept the license agreement to use Microsoft Windows XP Professional, which is not actually the certificate of authenticity that this thing has on it. So my guess is, when I tell it that I accept the agreement, it's going to ask me for the product key. Well, it hasn't yet. Let's see. Oops. Can't even spell my own name properly. Yep, that's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to ask me for a product key that I haven't got. Oh well, I do have a Dell Windows XP Home Edition installation disc, so that's no big deal. But at least the computer itself seems basically healthy and happy. And this is what happens if you don't accept the license agreement for Windows XP. I guess we have to view the log file. Yep, you elected not to accept the software license agreement for Windows XP. Oh well. Good night, computer. Let's try this little monitor here and see what happens with it. Well, got power. Saw a little waviness from the degaussing affecting the other monitor. So let's see if anything comes up on the screen here. It doesn't exactly look wonderful. Looks like it's got retrace lines all over the CRT. At least the CRT seems to be in pretty good health. But those aren't even... Oops. Those aren't even being affected by the brightness, contrast, or the geometry knobs. So I don't think... Let's try swapping the video cables here. Nope. Just some vaguely corresponding indication that maybe it's getting sync from the computer. I guess there's something wrong with the signal circuits in this monitor. Maybe bad caps or bad solder joints. Something like that. Does appear to be a color monitor though, because there are fringes of color up at the top and down at the bottom and on the edges, so oh well, that's probably going to require a bit of work to get it going again if I decide to bother with it. These little fellas could both use a really good cleaning, but after much looking I finally managed to find an acceptable cartridge for these, and like I say, they're nothing more than rebadged Pioneers. The only significant difference to them, apart from what it says on the front and a few of the controls, is the color of the display. For some reason, Pioneer put a color filter over their display that made it yellow, and changed the natural color of the display, which is that sort of light blue, almost white color. This was actually something that went under in the basement flood. Now, if you ever come across one of these machines and you put discs in it and it seems not to work, do make sure you load them properly. There's a note to that effect on the top. You actually load discs in one of these machines label side down. And then, come on. Well, that doesn't seem to be working. Oh, we got a gob of crap on there. It might be causing problems. And there's our first problem. That's why it wouldn't take a disc. Looks like somebody got violent with this one. Tried to extricate the cartridge when it wouldn't eject for some reason. Probably bad belts or something. So this one can't take any discs. Guess I'll have to try the one on the bottom. It loaded the disc. I'll have to move my audio cables though. I was going to try the top one first. See if this will work.
All across the South, got the...
Now, disc 2, it should report that as empty. Yep, and you can see it removed it from the row of icons down there. Should be something on disc. Well, I thought there was something on disc 3. I think it's only on disc 4. Yep. Likewise, disc 5 should be empty. Yep. A little moth. So the bottom one works. Top one needs a little bit of help. And just like their Pioneer brethren, these also support the built-in demo display if you press the power button and then you immediately press track backwards. It runs through all of its little features, tells you all about itself. The music types, in case you're wondering, are built-in equalization profiles. They don't actually seem to make a huge difference. So, most everything I got today seems to actually work pretty well. And it should be interesting to see if I can actually fix this thing. Well, that was an easier fix than I thought it would be. Just had to carefully pivot that thing out of there. And it actually started working just fine.